Hello and welcome to The Birth of a New Dimension. My name is Aurora, and I've created this radio show literally in order to prepare Earth surface human culture for the ongoing birth of a new dimension. This unfolding of the birth process began in 2001 with the invention of the flying rainbow lasagna. If you are not familiar with my work, let me introduce myself. I'm Aurora. I am a galactic walk-in and visionary artist. So the short story is, I'm not the original inhabitant of this physical body. I came into this physical body when the original inhabitant died due to lack of blood flow and oxygen to their brain, and it was a psychic attack. It was a murder. It wasn't just an accident or something that happened randomly. And I created the flying rainbow lasagna shape as a higher dimensional portal through which I, as consciousness, could travel and come into this realm. So the I that is speaking right now is an abstract energy presence. When people ask me, Aurora, what planet are you from? It is a fun and lighthearted way of asking for my origins. My origins are not a place in space that you can point to. It's not efficacious to try to speak about it in that way. I'm an abstraction, and my origins are in the higher dimensions. I have created a whole online class to teach about the higher dimensional perspective. My class is called Lessons for Full Spectrum Humans. There are 2 levels. The initiatory level is 20 recorded lessons. The lessons are recorded whiteboards which utilize my artwork, and I can draw and write diagrams on top of it, and it records my voice. So it's similar to listening to me here on the radio, except I also get to untie the other hand that's tied behind my back and actually draw pictures, which is the primary way that I've been communicating this information since I came here into this realm. Communicating this information is my mission, and it is the purpose of my life. The Flying Rainbow Lasagna is a unique and new, we could call it a paragraph or a poem that I wrote in the interdimensional language of color, line, shape, form, movement, texture, and tone. This is a higher dimensional language of vibration. So you could think of it as the language of light or the language of color or the language of sound and music, but really it is a language of vibration. I didn't invent this language. I have perceived the language, and I learned it from my higher dimensional guides and counterparts. The Flying Rainbow Lasagna is the new concept that I innovated and have expressed using the syntax of the language of this interdimensional vibration, color, line, shape, form, movement, texture, and tone. So the basics here are that you are a being of vibration. You're a full spectrum human. This means understanding that you are more than merely your red physical level, orange emotional level, and yellow human intellect, the daily waking human intellect. For a very long time, that is how humanity has been described. Just these first 3 chakras, and only very, very special people, maybe a saint or a Jesus or a Buddha, would make it to the level of green, which would be the level of unconditional love at the heart. Only if you got to meditate your whole life did you get up there. And it was just inconceivable that there are even higher faculties. The throat, which is light blue, indigo, which is at the level of the brow, and violet, which is at the level of the crown. Those are the higher faculties, and they rest on top of the heart, which is at the level of the chest, and it allows you to see and perceive higher dimensional reality and the possibilities and probabilities of your non-physical body. Your non-physical body, some people describe it as being made of light. It is made of time. So, Lessons for Full Spectrum Humans is the information necessary for you to claim the entire spectrum of who you are, not just these first three lower levels. We know that you got a physical body. We know you have mammalian emotions such as anger and sadness, or lust, or hatred, or joy. And we also know you have a thin smear of cerebral cortex on top of that, the human mind mitigating the lower factors of the mammalian and reptilian aspects of self. You are much more than that. That is what humanity has been defined up into the present over the course of human history. But on this radio program, I have said many times that human history goes far back beyond what is presently remembered, and that there was a time when everyone here was a full spectrum human, that is what you were created for. So you were not created to have a physical body that wears out in a mere 100 years, and you were also not created to, let's say, live without guidance and just bump into the flowing membrane of death over and over and over and have to be reassembled until you finally find the wormhole and exit out of here. That is not the experience that was intended. That experience is what humanity has been going through for the past 10 or 20,000 years due to a degradation of the genetic code. I offer you a tool to rewrite your genetic code. That tool is the Flying Rainbow Lasagna. I created Lessons for Full Spectrum Humans because in order to understand what the Flying Rainbow Lasagna is, first of all, it requires writing and pictures, so there's a lot of diagrams. It's not something that can easily be understood in an hour. It's like trying to describe something like quantum physics. It requires first creating a foundation of understanding, establishing a vocabulary, and then building on top of that foundation more and more complex concepts. This is what the course does. It begins with energetic anatomy, the shape of your chakras. Chakras are non-physical energy centers. How that relates to the shape of time, possibilities, and probabilities. How that relates to things in the physical world that is observed by science, such as electromagnetic fields and solenoids. And also how that relates to harmonics. Harmonics of the patterns of both sound waves and light waves and non-physical waves of consciousness, because you are a musician submerged, and you're a vibrating instrument submerged within a sea of vibration, and that sea of vibration is a cosmic symphony. And the idea here is that you need to tune your instrument and become a better listener in order to become a better collaborative player in the cosmic symphony. Up until this point, humanity has been greatly limited because of the genetic degradation. Humans weren't able to, they were like a bit tone deaf and playing loud and unable to hear their wrong notes. So I'll get into Flying Rainbow Lasagna as how this can change and upgrade your genes in a moment. Hold on. So the question is, what causes or changes the shape of genes? Genes are literally moving and dancing all the time. Perhaps in your old science textbook it taught you that genes are shaped like an X-shaped chromosome. That is only during a very limited aspect of a cell's life cycle. Only right before mitosis, which is when a cell splits apart and literally replicates itself, are the genetic material coiled into the chromosome shape. Most of the time, genetic material is totally unfurled, like a sweater that has had the string pulled out of it, and it's all together in what is known as chromatin. This is what fills up the entire nucleus of every one of your cells when your cells aren't just prepared to in the process of replication. Brief pause. When your genes are unfurled like that in the nucleus, it allows RNA to enter into what is essentially the blueprint or library zone of your body and read the genes, and then take copies of whatever it read out to the rest of the cell and say, hey, make stuff that looks like this. In order to access some of the blueprints or pages of your book, because the genes are ordinarily tightly curled, they need to be uncurled. And if you've ever tried to uncoil a spring, you know it's very difficult. There's lots of stored up energy. It is necessary to unsplice the totality of the string. So there are specially designed enzymes that snip your DNA so that it can be unfurled, so that the little RNA messengers can actually get in there and read the book. And this is called epigenetics. This epigenetics means the code that rules the code. For a very long time after genes were discovered in, the mid-20th century, people thought genetic fatalism. I am fated to develop such and such disease because it is written in the book of me. That is the idea of genetic fatalism. But there are many wonderful evolutionary biologists now who have granted greater sophisticated understanding to the process of what genes are doing in your body. Bruce Lipton is one I highly recommend looking into his videos, and he's on YouTube, all about epigenetics and how you are not a victim of your genes. Basically, identical twins do not develop identical diseases. They both might have the same potential within them to develop cancer, but they have different thoughts, different emotional experiences, different life experiences that create different tones inside of their vibrating strings, and they don't all develop the same diseases. This means that what is written in your blueprints or in your books is not necessarily what is instantaneously manifested as your reality. Your consciousness has a great deal to do with what is manifested as reality. Information has a great deal to do, and your belief system, the information that you have access to and what you choose to believe in, has a great deal to do with what you experience in your physical reality. So first of all, just me giving you that information and backing it up with something from, physical sciences, like saying there's a scientist who has done actual research about this. I just changed your genes. And you volunteered for that because you chose to turn on this radio show. If you didn't want to have your genes changed, don't tune in to Birth of a New Dimension, because the abstract sound of my voice is changing your genes, and the literal information contained within this, the flapping of my moving mouth parts, also is changing your genes. So I just reformatted you by telling you, hey, you're not a victim of your genes. You don't simply have to play out what mommy and daddy and grandma and grandpa, all the way going back, what they gave you. I'm actually going to give you, with the Flying Rainbow Lasagna, a pencil with an eraser. You can become the editor of your genetic code. This is what I'm trying to tell you. There was a time before human genes were degraded, about 10 or 12,000 years ago, when humans could cellularly regenerate, remain young and healthy for hundreds, if not thousands, of years. Humans could choose to use their physical bodies in good health and comfort for as long as they wanted to, learning their life lessons joyously, and then letting go of their physical corporeal forms when they are ready to return to an abstract, non-physical state. That is the process of ascension. Humans were not designed to come here as disposable bodies, like, I lost that body, I lost that body, I lost that body. No, not at all. Our bodies are incredibly valuable instruments, and we were designed to have higher faculties that would help us to perceive accurately through time and protect our incredibly valuable instruments. Okay, so back to lessons for full spectrum humans. I would also like to set myself apart a little bit from other teachers. I know there are many other teachers here that might be part of what is called the New Age movement of consciousness. However, not anyone else has information about the Flying Rainbow Lasagna, and no one that I've perceived yet has information about the accurate mathematical proportions of the chakras. So, for example, someone came to my studio 2 weeks ago and they said, wait, these are what chakras actually look like? I thought they were just glowing balls of light, like orbs of light. And I said, no, chakras have a structure, and the structure has a size and a nested harmonic proportion of how it relates to the other chakras of your body. And this is information that I have that I don't think you will be able to find anywhere else. The harmonic measurements and nested structural proportions of the chakras. First of all, I know we're on the radio right now. I generally communicate using visual arts. Please look at my website, flyingrainbowlasagna.com, where you can see examples of my visual arts, or on the ucy.tv homepage, there's the Twitter feed from Birth of a New Dimension. You can click on any of the pictures that I have posted there, and you will see glorious examples of the nested harmonic nature of the chakra system. So one example would be Ascension 2012. I think I have another one that is called the energy system of a human body, and you can see it listed very clearly there. So the next aspect of teaching is that you have this non-physical energy presence. It's made up of time. Your genes, your DNA, are literally a bridge of light between the world of pure consciousness or pure possibility and probability, the uncollapsed waveforms of reality, and the experienced quote-unquote external reality. And the Flying Rainbow Lasagna is a new dance movement that you can perform with your DNA that unlocks or makes available again the formats of your genes that you had way back when you could live for as long as you wanted to and not have to cellularly age and die and become decrepit and die and then try it all again, as you have been doing for the past 10 or 12,000 years. So the Flying Rainbow Lasagna is this essential tool of consciousness. The first part of learning how to use this tool is learning of its existence. It exists. That changes you on a deep level. Seeing examples modeled for you. I, Aurora, am the first model of what a Flying Rainbow Lasagna is. So I told you that I'm a walk-in. I'm an abstract energy presence of consciousness that has come into this physical format of this body. And I have rearranged on a cellular level what the body is and the way it behaves. So I do not look that radically different than the original inhabitant. It's not like I now have 5 arms or 10 legs or something like that. Not at all. However, my cellular body responds to consciousness differently than the other cellular body did. Basically, the cells of this body respond to consciousness instantaneously. There's an instant manifestation as opposed to a time delay manifestation, which is how things usually are. If I were to describe the adding of an additional dimension and the adding of an additional degree of freedom to you, I would say envision a flat piece of paper. That's the two dimensions, like it's a two-dimensional surface. If we fold that piece of paper, we bring a two-dimensional surface up into the third dimension. And this is what creates an additional degree of freedom. More freedom means you can move in more directions. So up until this point, humanity has been limited in the dance movements which you can perform with your DNA while it's vibrating as chromatin in the nuclei of your cells. Those limitations are limitations of consciousness. Literally, you've been programmed only to be able to feel and believe certain things, and that puts you in a certain realm of consciousness. You can't be on certain timelines because you literally can't believe and encompass the thoughts that you need to believe to be on those timelines. Say to me now, Aurora, I do not understand what you are talking about. Please explain more. And I'm talking about magic. If we say there's a timeline where you're standing in a field with your friend and your friend suddenly stretches out his or her arms and jumps into the sky and flies, just flaps their arms and flies, and we would consider that to be a magical or impossible occurrence. That's the programming here. Objective materialism, rational skepticism, scientific, objective materialistic mindset. That is not humanly possible. You literally, with your genes in their present format, cannot be on a timeline where you witness a human do that. You can't be there because your genes can't achieve that format. Even if your friend could literally flap their arms and fly, you can't put yourself and your consciousness on that timeline because you can't believe it. It takes belief that it can be done, that for you to even begin to occupy those realms. So humans now keep those realms alive by thinking of it as, once upon a time, like the magical golden days of yore or a time before time. Atlantis is remembered as a mythological time, or we're talking about King Arthur. King Arthur these are legends from the Middle Ages, like the 1100s of the Common Era, that referred to a time before time when magic still ruled the world. And the idea of magic ruling the world instead of science or the objective materialistic viewpoint, this is the idea that you could occupy occupied timelines where inexplicable things happened. And magic is not that a random or capricious chaotic occurrence in the cosmos. It means there's a different set of rules that are in play. So right now, if you want to occupy a timeline where you see a person magically levitate up into the air and fly by flapping their arms, you would have to reformat and restructure your genes on a basic level. So this is the concept here, that your genes are not just the blueprint of your cartilage that dictates what is the shape of your nose or what is the shape of your toe. Your genes are a bridge of light between the world of potential events and the world of experienced events, okay? Back to Lessons for Full Spectrum Humans. I'm really focusing in this episode of this broadcast on inviting you and offering you this lasagna for your mind, because the semester begins in January of 2016, and right now it is the end of December 2015. So although you can join the class at any time, right now is a great time to enroll because you start at the beginning. And as I said, the information is cumulative and it builds from a foundation. So the way that the information is presented, there are recorded homework lessons of different topics, and you access that information on your own, and then there are monthly live video conferences where the whole class gathers together using video conferencing software. You can see my face, I can see your face if you choose. You can always cover your video if you don't want to, if your hair's not looking good on that day. And you can also ask questions or ask questions in chat. And the difference to set myself apart from other webinars, on some webinars, you are just an observer. You're not an observer/participant, where you cannot actually raise your hand in class and ask questions. So the whole idea is, I teach by presenting information and then receiving feedback and questions from the class and then tailoring my response. So the video conferences are very much a give and take, and I learn a lot and also receive a lot of wonderful insight from trying to present these brand new concepts to the planet, to Earth. This is what this is all about. I'm including a link on the Birth of a New Dimension Twitter feed to the registration page. So my Flying Rainbow Lasagna website is still being fine-tuned. And if you go there and click on Lessons for Full Spectrum Humans, you will find the description from last year's class. It's still relevant. All of the material is the same. However, the format has changed slightly. So if you would like all of the updated material, you need to find my class on teachable.com. And first of all, I'm including the link. If you're on the ucy.tv homepage, just go to the at Birth Dimension Twitter feed and you'll see the link. You can also do a simple search. If you're someplace right now where you're maybe traveling, you don't have paper and pencil, just burn this into your mind right now. Flying Rainbow Lasagna University or Lessons for Full Spectrum Humans. You can do a Google search of either of those two terms, and it should bring you to my online class on teachable.com. So the name of my university is Flying Rainbow Lasagna University, and the name of the class is Lessons for Full Spectrum Humans. And the benefit to joining the class is that the information is presented in a cohesive format, starting at the beginning and taking you on a journey of consciousness. I learned from the beginning when people started to visit my studio, and I'm very enthusiastic and very excited always to share what I know. And I would just dive in and start presenting all of these concepts in a very non-linear format. I understood early on that it can be overwhelming. And the analogy is very much like, let's say that you are a student of physics from this time and place, and you travel back in time by, 1,000 years, and you wanted to present the information that you have at your disposal to the people of that time and place. Well, you can go to a regular college and they're going to say, this is not our curriculum. We don't recognize this. It's not our curriculum. And you can go to, individuals and try to say to them, I have this new specialized knowledge. Basically, I'm trying to say that it has been up until this point an uphill battle to get people to recognize the value of this information and what it is and to present it in a cohesive format. That is why I ended up creating my own online class in order to do so. And the information in the class is not merely something that I made up or that is my own personal opinion. The information presented in the class is empirical information about the structure of the cosmos. So it has to do with the structure of your non-physical body, the different layers of your existence, from your physical to your emotional, your intellectual, to your, let's say, unconditional love, up through your higher faculties of truth, wisdom, and the connection to the divine. And the flying rainbow lasagna concept, just in order to understand that, it's necessary to first understand the structure of the torus, or the donut shape. So the donut shape is the primary structure of energy as it is flowing in the cosmos. It's the same as the shape of your non-physical energy field around your body, the same as Earth's magnetosphere, the same as the sun's heliosphere. It is the shape of the energetic envelope surrounding a black hole and or surrounding a galaxy. It's a primary shape of energy as it is flowing in the cosmos. And when we add another dimension to that shape, just like the analogy of folding a piece of paper to add an additional dimension, we add an additional degree of freedom. And in this sense, the additional degree of freedom is one of travel of consciousness. So when we fold a two-dimensional flat plane into a third-dimensional shape, we gain more freedom of movement in space. When we place a torus or a donut shape into a higher dimensional context and create a flying rainbow lasagna, we gain more freedom in our consciousness movements in time. I say this all the time. I say, we are stuck to the flat plane of time like an ant is stuck to the surface of a leaf. If the ant wants to go to the edge of the leaf, it has to crawl up the stem, crawl all the way across the leaf, and then make it to the little pointy edge of the leaf. And you wake up in the morning, and if you want to get to dinner time, you have to go all the way through breakfast, all the way through lunch, and all the way to dinner time. You can't jump directly to dinner from waking up in the morning, just like the little ant can't jump directly to the edge of the leaf. Now imagine a winged adult insect, such as a butterfly or a fly or a gnat. A winged insect can fly directly to the edge of the leaf. It has gained the freedom of movement of the third dimension. When you understand and fully encompass the profundity of the concept of the flying rainbow lasagna and apply it to your own genetic dance movements in your body, you will be like an adult winged form. You can now fly with consciousness through time. If you want to get to some event that is 3,000 years in the future, you don't have to laboriously crawl along the leaf until you get to 3,000 years in the future. You can fly directly there. Talk with whomever you need to, share whatever information or energy you need to share, and then return to your consciousness where it is in your physical body. Or you can go to 3,000 years in the past. And the way that I can describe this happening is a dissolving of boundaries, or a rendering moot of boundaries. If you had a house that was hermetically sealed with no air inside of the house could ever escape the house, those two, the inside and outside, could never communicate. The air in the house is what it is. It's never going to touch the atmosphere outside of the house. And as soon as you create one opening, a door or a window or a cat door, we can begin to communicate the inner realm and the outer realm. Well, your ego has been this false boundary that has kept your consciousness hermetically sealed up until this point. The ego is the hacked operating system that exists at the level of yellow, the solar plexus, the thin smear of human understanding of your cerebral cortex on top of the mammalian and reptilian aspects of self. It is a part of your body, an organ of your body that has been hijacked or hacked, taken from its original reformat and repurposed into what it is supposed into from what it was supposed to be into what it presently is now. Your ego is meant to be a seamless interface for your abstract higher consciousness to flow through your body as a conduit and express itself in the physical realm. Your ego has been turned into a stumbling block or an obstacle for consciousness to have to get through in order to get into the physical realm. And only when we meditate, temporarily pressing pause on the ego aspect of mind, are we able to reach the higher mind. That's not how you were designed. When we transform the ego, we turn it from like a bloated, obese, out of shape, non-athletic thing into a mean, lean, athletically toned, aspect of self. You don't have to kill your ego, but you do have to get rid of all of the excess stuff that's not really you. And this process happens through the process of meditation and mindfulness, through receiving emotional distance. When we perform inner silence, you get emotional distance. This means non-reactive space between a stimulation and an observation, and you get to watch your thoughts as they float across your mind screen, just like watching thoughts float across the sky, or watching clouds rather float across the sky. And you don't identify with them, and you learn about where those thoughts come from, what those thoughts actually are, and eventually decide which thoughts are really you and which thoughts are not really you. Which thoughts are merely the perturbations of the field. And the field is the field of consciousness. The field is the symphony of vibrations within which you are submerged. And we begin to understand now, you're not operating in a vacuum, you're in a context, and that context is not a perfectly clear context. I've said this on other broadcasts. The world here was designed to be a schoolhouse, teaching place where you can learn. But it actually is a fun house, a distorted realm where it is very difficult to learn because what you send out is not necessarily what comes back to you. Sometimes what you emit in terms of consciousness and intention does not match what comes back to you. You're supposed to be here in this giant biofeedback loop with a larger consciousness entity that says, here, I give you this body, and you do stuff with the body, and you find out, hey, this is the right stuff to do with the body, this is the wrong stuff to do with the body based upon the feedback loop that you get from the cosmos. And basically, when you do the right stuff and think the right things, you survive, and when you do the wrong stuff and think the wrong things, you don't survive. However, we are meant to be able to perceive with our higher faculties beforehand what are the right things to do and not merely go through trial and error, the long, hard route of having to do it over and over again. So the Flying Rainbow Lasagna is a return to that genetic format that allows us to look down the road in front of us. It's like driving with the view of the windshield, not just driving and staring in the rearview mirror, which is how most humans presently experience time. So even look at the way that science describes time. Science describes the Big Bang as a spontaneous emanation of consciousness and time from a single collapsed point. That single collapsed point is called the singularity. If you look at the tori or toruses that I paint and draw and sculpt, that singularity is the convergence of all of the rainbow lines. And that singularity is also our wormhole exit from this level of reality. The singularity is the place where the stretchy fabric of time, space, and consciousness is stretched infinitely. And I add in the element of consciousness. Science just recognizes that it is a fabric woven out of time and space. But that's like saying, if we look at, an old-fashioned analog record, the record is time and space, but your consciousness is like the needle of awareness. If there's no awareness or no consciousness, there's no music being played on that record. You're just an inert record. So we are talking about the stretching of the fabric of time and space and consciousness into this format that science describes as expanding outward from the infinite point. The infinite point decides one day, I'm going to expand outward, and that creates the envelope of time. And you occupy the moment of time that is described as the present, and it is the surface, the ever-expanding surface of the bubble of time, and everything that is inside of the time bubble is the past. And science does not even presently recognize anything beyond the present moment, which is the now, which is the surface of the bubble. Science does not recognize the future. Even though we know the future exists, science describes this whole shape as just a shape existing without context. So we have this vortex shape, this torus shape, existing without context. And it creates duality. There's the inside, there's the outside, and there's this unbreakable bubble or a membrane separating the two. And I said to you that this is your ego. Psychedelic entheogens are also tools for a dissolution of the ego. When people ingest certain plant-based substances or entheogens, it temporarily presses pause on the ego, that structure and narrative story of self that has been built up within one incarnation, and it allows your consciousness to connect with consciousness that's from the source, that has not been slowed down in its trajectory. So this is, you're reconnecting to light that is traveling from the source at its original speed. I feel like I need to describe that concept better. In infanthood, in infancy, humans begin to create a sense of self, a separation or a boundary between who they are and the rest of the world. And this begins with tactile and sensory information. When I touch my leg, I feel it. When I touch my crib, I don't feel it. And when I eat this strawberry, it tastes delicious. It's very different than chewing on my actual fingers. Little babies have to learn this. They put their feet in their mouth and they chew in order to learn, hey, that's my own foot. I shouldn't bite it. I should bite food instead. These are very early stages of developing of the ego. And eventually we learn our name. My name is this, and this is me, and this is not me. And the ego is a boundary that separates me from not me. The ego is like the cell membrane that separates the intracellular goo from the extracellular goo. However, it's all goo. If you expand and dilate your identity, you recognize that you are within a much larger entity, and that the cell membrane is an arbitrarily defined boundary, and that the goo inside of the cell is very similar to the goo outside of the cell. And the flying rainbow lasagna is this tool, similar to psychedelic experiences, that is a tool for dissolving boundaries. Here is how it is utilized. So this is all information that I present in Lessons for Full Spectrum Humans. What is the flying rainbow lasagna shape? What does it look like? How do you do it? Because it is something, not just a concept that you think about. It is an energetic maneuver that you perform. And you perform it in the same way that you perform a visualization or a meditation. First, you have to learn about what the shape is. Then you have to learn how to visualize it with your mind. And then you learn how to visualize your own non-physical aspect of self performing it. And one of the key aspects of it is the concept of the singularity within you combining or being bridged with the singularity in another being. So there's a singularity at the center of our star. There's one at the center of every star. There's one at the center of our planet. There's one at the center of every single one of your cells. In each one of their nuclei, there is a singularity at the center of every atom. There is a singularity at the center of every galaxy. There is a singularity. If you are able to really embody that truth and how profound that truth is, you are able to perform the flying rainbow lasagna maneuver. It is the understanding that there are many doorways to infinity, but they all lead to the same room. So the singularity within you and the singularity within, let's say, the sun is the same singularity. And there are just two different doorways within your own chakra system and within the sun's center that lead to that same realm. And the flying rainbow lasagna is the oscillating shape that brings together these two different doorways. So this is like folding the flat piece of paper so the little ant doesn't have to walk all the way across it in order to get to the other side, or folding time so that you don't have to go through 3,000 years of breakfast, lunch, dinner to get to the dinner in 3,000 years that you actually want to get to. If you actually want to speak to the sun, you need to fold the fabric of time, space, and consciousness utilizing the shape called the flying rainbow lasagna. Now, if all of that sounds interesting, fascinating, and exciting, and you'd like to learn more, the first thing you can do is check out my website, flyingrainbowlasagna.com. There's many videos and animations that describe what the flying rainbow lasagna is. And if you would like to go further, please enroll in my class on teachable.com. So you've got different options of finding the actual link. You can go to the ucy.tv homepage. The link is present there. You can go to Google and do a search for Flying Rainbow Lasagna University or Lessons for Full Spectrum Humans. You can even find it on my online course page on Facebook. The semester begins in January 2016. However, you can access the lessons anytime. And the webinars will be ongoing over the next 5 months. So the webinars will be split up into different topics. One of the topics will be the first month, which is that you have energetic anatomy and what it is shaped like. One of the topics will be how to restructure your DNA into the flying rainbow lasagna shape. One of the topics is all about galactic history. Now, I also present this as a standalone webinar, even though I really feel it's important to take this information in context. The reason why I created a comprehensive course was because I'm a really responsible teacher, and I do not just give a stick of dynamite to a kid or a firecracker and say, now, go play. And a lot of these concepts are self-empowering concepts about being a co-creator and a collaborator with higher consciousness in reality. It is all about becoming an artist of reality, getting your own divine paintbrush of consciousness or your imagination, and being able to create the events or contribute to the creation of the events that you wish. And in order to do so in an ethical and responsible way, let's say to add to the beauty of the world as opposed to just painting a lot of poop, you need to have a foundation of unconditional love. First, before we begin to paint, we need to take some primary lessons and learn to love ourselves and learn to control our basic emotional responses and just get our consciousness to the level of unconditional love. And from there, we can begin to collaborate with the cosmos as loving beings. So for some part of the class structure is about unconditional love and teaching that. And unconditional love is not merely an airy-fairy New Age hippie ideal, nor shall it be confused or misinterpreted as romantic love or mammalian attraction. It is in actuality a tone. Oh, I'm right here by my instrument. In the same way that this note of A at 432 hertz is a tone. Unconditional love is a tone that is achieved when there is an equal amount or a harmonic balance of giving and receiving. So right now, the stellar network has emanated your consciousness. It not only emanated the physical elements of your physical body that allow you to be alive, such as calcium and iron. The stellar network has also emanated your mind, your consciousness, your awareness, the part of you that looks out of your eyes and makes your brain go. And the stellar consciousness has also emanated the timelines upon which you travel. And when you emit back to the stellar network an equal amount of energy that it is sending out to you, that real-time broadcast, you are literally creating the tone that is unconditional love. Unconditional love is evidenced by, or another model of this behavior is chloroplasts, or are chloroplasts. Plant, when you are watching photosynthesis, you are, first of all, perceiving the frequency of green. green is related to the heart chakra, not accidentally. The green color is produced when plants are in that process of receiving energy from the stellar network and emitting energy back to the stellar network. They vibrate at actually 528 hertz, which is the frequency of chlorophyll and of photosynthesis, and we perceive that as the color green, and it is a literal tone, like a musical note. So when I teach about unconditional love, I'm teaching about meditation and mindfulness and getting together a momentum. If you could almost imagine like the way that a bicycle tires need to get together enough momentum to be able to hold the rider upright. And if you slow the bicycle down, then the bicycle starts to fall over. Your chakras spin like bicycle wheels. And when you meditate, when you press pause on the entropic friction of conscious thought from your daily waking intellect, you gather momentum. You gather, in the Far East, it is named chi or prana. This is the energy of consciousness as it is flowing. And the more that you are able to gather that energy, the more you are able to make your chakras spin in an unimpeded fashion, and you gather momentum, and you gather unconditional love momentum, and that creates a gyro-stabilized foundation for the higher faculty chakras to rest upon. And the higher faculty chakras are your throat. This is communication, and communication has everything to do with everything we do with our hands. Gesturing, playing music, painting, everything that we do with our hands is this communication, and everything that flows out of our larynx. And on top of there is wisdom. Wisdom is information that is not clothed with words. And then up from there, the divine connection, or connection to higher consciousness, or connection to something that is moving at a faster rate than you are presently moving. That is the best neutral way of stating it. And when you experience that, then you are a full spectrum human, from your root chakra to your emotions, to your conscious waking intellect, to your unconditional love, the ability to communicate, wisdom, which is just pure insight, and your connection to the divine. And then when all of those notes add up, we get up to white light. This is like the primary emanation. This is the emanation of coherent or laser-like light or consciousness that comes from the stellar network. It's white light. Light that comes from our sun has a color recipe. It is comprised of red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, and violet make up white. So you are a full spectrum human. In order to be that white light, you need to be all of these rainbow colors adding up together. So the Lessons for Full Spectrum Humans course is designed to make you aware of your energetic anatomy, give you real information about the structure of that anatomy. I do use math, and I hope that that is not intimidating, because I use math in a very fun and accessible way. I relate numbers to colors and shapes and proportions, and make it again, not intimidating, because I understand from coming into this world that a lot of people had negative experiences in school when their teachers tried to present numbers and math to them in a very off-putting way. And I understand that now. Math can be understood as art and music, and it can be understood as a very beautiful underlying structure of the cosmos. That is what harmonics is. So harmonics is what the difference between noise and structured music, which is, an actual chord that we would perceive as actual music. We're talking about a pattern of energy as it flows. So I've described earlier how you are like a musician, and we consider someone to be a good musician if their instrument is in tune, if they play their part at the right time, and if they don't play or they rest at the right time. And harmonics. Harmonics is actually when you make notes, or overtones is when you make notes out of the primary notes that are there. So within each note or fundamental note, there are other notes, like subnotes. These notes are called overtones, and the overtones fit together perfectly like circles that fit within each other. And when they fit within each other perfectly, they are tuned to the right frequency, and we hear them as sounding pretty. They sound nice. I'm going to play on my chakra harmonizer instrument over here some notes that sound together and harmonize and sound nice. And you can hear that whoa, whoa, whoa. That sound, that oscillation, is the evidence for your ears of harmonic overtones. When it is louder, that means that sound waves are adding up together, amplifying one another. And when it is softer, it means sound waves are canceling one another out. You are literally listening to the auditory version of an interference pattern. What happens when two sets of waves get together and begin to interact with one another. This cosmic symphony that we are submerged within is many more than just two sets of waves. You are comprised of 7 main chakras, and each one of your chakras is comprised of 7 sub-chakras. And you are surrounded by many, many, many other people. How many billions of people are on this planet also emitting their vibrations? And many, many other life forms. Because every single cell, even a unicellular organism, has its own chakra system. So you are a musician. Your instrument is your body, and your body includes your harmonic structure of your chakras. And we consider you to be a good musician when you are aware of your structure and when you are well tuned. And that means you're tuned to the symphony within which you are submerged. You're not just playing your own notes over in the corner like some kind of a punk rock person, I'm just wailing away on a cowbell on my own. You're part of a larger orchestra. And each one of us is affecting everyone else with the music that we play. When you meditate, when you are mindful, you are affecting the world around you in a very wonderful, positive way. The meditators of the Far East already know about this, that the best way to end a war is not to get a lot of guns and point them at your enemy and threaten them with violence and say, if you don't, I will do this. The best way to end a war is to assemble thousands of people, or children, and have them sit quietly in meditation and emit peaceful vibrations. You can do a little bit of research on this if you want to. There was a scientific experiment that was done in the 1970s in the Washington, D.C. area. It is known as the Maharishi effect, even though it might be a little bit negative to consider to associate it with the Maharishi, who might have been considered corrupt. But let's just say that it is a scientific exploration into the effect of mass meditation on mass consciousness, where there was a direct correlation between mass meditation over the course of a week in the Washington, D.C. area and a reduction in violent crime and murders. Basically, if you want people to act more peacefully, emanate very strong vibes of peace. That is what meditation is. It is emitting coherent waves of consciousness. And I've spoken about this on previous broadcasts. The current Western musical scale is tuned with A at 440, but that actually creates a slight cognitive dissonance because it is not a happy multiple or divisor of 8. And 8 hertz is the Schumann resonance, the resonance at which, or frequency at which our planet naturally resonates. And 8 hertz is a frequency which makes our hemispheres of our brain communicate much more happily across the central bridge of connection between the two hemispheres. When we listen to music tuned to 432 hertz, such as that tone on my special new instrument here, it helps to bring our consciousness into harmonic alignment with our physical multicellular body. Your consciousness has been out of alignment with its physical container for about 10 or 12,000 years. This has been due to the genetic degradation of the human code. It was done intentionally. It was done to take you away from your higher faculties. The Flying Rainbow Lasagna is a new shape that you can use to reformat your genes and regain access to your higher faculties. And listening to music or instruments or sounds, such as these harmonic singing bowls, helps to bring you back into the structure of being in tune with the cosmic symphony. So in the last few minutes here, I'm just going to save my work and take a little bit of time to bathe you in sound. This instrument that I'm playing over here is specifically tuned. There are 8 tubes that produce a tone, and the 8 tones interact in a harmonic way in order to create complex tonal patterns. These are the overtones. The overtones have a benevolent impact on the cellular structure of your physical body. Even if it is not a sensory organ, it is still being vibrated in a benevolent way. So your eardrums are sensory organs. That you feel the music. You also feel the music with the soles of your feet and with your diaphragm, and with your pancreas and with the aqueous vitreous inside of your eyeballs. Feel this music, and is designed to help the instrument of your body get in tune. So I'm just going to go out on this episode playing this a little bit. Please take time to look into Lessons for Full Spectrum Humans on Teachable.com and matriculate to the Flying Rainbow Lasagna University. Thank you so very much. Beginning with the C.